We used to trust the news. We thought it was about facts. But what if I told you the news isn't about truth anymore? What if it's about control? Let's break it down. Once upon a time, news was supposed to inform, but something changed. In 2012, Congress quietly repealed key parts of the Smith-Mundt Act, which for decades had banned the U.S. government from using propaganda on its own citizens. Now, the same psychological tactics once used abroad can be, and are being, used at home. But it's not just government. Corporate media has also shifted from reporting to shaping narratives. Modern news doesn't just report facts, it tells a version of the truth, while conveniently leaving out the details that would dismantle the story. This technique, telling truth but telling it slant, is straight out of Marxist playbooks. It's about controlling perception, not informing the public. Take selective outrage. One event sparks nonstop headlines. Another, just as serious, gets buried. Why? Because the goal isn't to inform, it's to guide how you think and feel. Facts that don't fit the narrative, omitted, downplayed, discredited. The story isn't what happened, it's what they want you to believe happened. Ever wonder why stories seem coordinated? It's because they are. Government agencies, intelligence officials, and think tanks seed narratives into newsrooms, ensuring mass media marches in lockstep. The free press? More like an information cartel. And the biggest trick? The illusion of debate. They create both sides of an issue, but both sides stay inside the same narrative box. No real dissent, just different flavors of the same controlled story. That's not journalism. That's manufacturing consent. All right, let's dive into one of the big stories of 2023, how the media covered the U.S. economy. Now, if you were following the news then, you probably heard a lot about positive economic indicators. Things like job growth, declining inflation rates, and strong GDP numbers were front and center. The Biden administration was quick to highlight these metrics, arguing that the economy was bouncing back strong from the pandemic and other global shocks. Yeah, and on the surface that sounds great, right? But here's the thing, critics argued that the media wasn't telling the whole story. They were focusing on these big picture numbers while kind of glossing over the real struggles that a lot of Americans were still facing. For example, while the headlines might have said inflation was coming down, a lot of low and middle income families were still feeling the pinch. We're talking about the skyrocketing costs of housing, groceries, and healthcare, basically the essentials. These are the things that hit people where it hurts, and they weren't getting enough attention. And it wasn't just about the cost of living. Certain groups were hit harder than others. Think about fixed income retirees or working class families. For them, even a small increase in prices can be devastating. But you didn't hear much about that in the mainstream coverage. And then there's the whole issue of corporate price gouging. Even as supply chain issues started to ease, prices for a lot of goods stayed high. Critics pointed out that some companies were using inflation as an excuse to keep prices up and boost their profits. But again, that part of the story didn't always make it into the headlines. So why does this matter? Well, when the media focuses only on the macroeconomic metrics, the big numbers, it creates this disconnect between the official narrative and what people are actually experiencing in their day-to-day lives. It's like, hey, the economy's doing great. But for a lot of folks, it doesn't feel that way. And that's a problem. Because if the media isn't giving us the full picture, it's harder for people to understand what's really going on and harder to hold leaders accountable for addressing these issues. So, next time you see a headline, ask yourself, what's being left out? Who benefits from this narrative? Because in today's media landscape, the truth isn't just bent, it's engineered. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, hit like, follow, and share. The real conversation should start with objective truth that has all of the relevant facts.